Chapter 3, Section 2, England's Wars, England's Colonies. There would be three major conflicts that impacted English colonization of North America. The three major conflicts are listed here for us: the Civil War and Revolution in England, King Philip's War in Massachusetts, and Bacon's Rebellion in Virginia. Civil War and Revolution in England. By 1620, Puritans in England controlled Parliament, the English governing body. In 1640, King Charles I needed new taxes to fund his suppression of a Scottish rebellion. The Puritan-controlled Parliament approved those new taxes, but limited the authority of the monarch, King Charles I. In 1642, England erupted into civil war, with Oliver Cromwell, who's pictured on the left, leading Puritans in Parliament to victory over King Charles I. Cromwell would officially take over in 1649. Over time, people in England grew tired of Puritan rule and eventually invited Charles II back to take the throne. When Charles II took the throne in 1658, he became interested in further colonial expansion in North America. King Philip's War, 1675 to 1676. The Native American chief Massasoit and the Pilgrim governor, William Bradford, had made a pact in Plymouth, Massachusetts that created years of peace. However, new generations, led by Metacom, pictured on the left, who was Massasoit's son, forgot about the years of peace that had been established, or didn't understand why the peace had been established. Metacom began preparing for war. Metacom then executed a scout who told the English that the Native Americans were preparing for war. The war included vicious attacks from both sides, and the war ended when Metacom was cornered in a swamp and killed. The English sold captives into slavery. The consistent conflict we will see between colonizers and Native Americans will be over land. As colonies become more populated, colonists will want more Native American land, leading to additional conflicts. Bacon's Rebellion, 1676. Nathaniel Bacon, who's pictured on the right, and his militia, made up mostly of poor farmers and former indentured servants, people who had worked off their travel debt to reach the British North American colonies, attacked Native Americans for their land. Governor Berkeley had Bacon arrested, and upon being freed, Nathaniel Bacon turned his militia on Virginia and Governor Berkeley and burned Jamestown to the ground. Berkeley had to go back to England for help. The English military put down Bacon's rebellion, which demonstrated a clear class division between the elite landowning class and the poor farmers and former indentured servant class. Landowners could control slave labor and suppress rebellions, and they would not have to set slaves free like indentured servants could earn their freedom. This was the transition from large landowners, now preferring slave labor to indentured servants. Please pause your video and answer these three review questions about Section 2. Chapter 3, Section 3. France takes control of the heart of a continent. By 715, France had the largest land claim in North America. Early French settlements: Quebec, Montreal, and the fur trade. Samuel de Champlain founded the small settlement of Quebec as a trading outpost in 1608. Champlain quickly allied the French with the Huron to fight against the Iroquois. By 1612, Samuel de Champlain had become the viceroy of New France. In 1615 and 1616, Champlain explored the Great Lakes region. In 1642, the French established Montreal to expand their fur trading network. When the Iroquois wiped out the Huron, the French quickly allied themselves with the Algonquian for protection against the Iroquois, and as a source for the fur trade. Exploring and claiming the Mississippi River Valley. In 1663, King Louis XIV of France made New France a royal province and sent soldiers. In 1672, Louis Joliet and Father Jacques Marquette explored the Mississippi River. Joliet and Marquette created an alliance with the Illinois Native Americans. They wanted to establish a colony for trade and to block English expansion further west into the Mississippi River Valley. Robert de La Salle continued exploring the Mississippi River in 1679. He reached the Gulf of Mexico in 1681 and claimed Louisiana for France. Creating the French Gulf Coast, Biloxi, Mobile, and New Orleans. Upon reaching the Gulf of Mexico, France founded 2 additional settlements, one at Biloxi and a second at New Orleans. The French introduced African slavery to the Mississippi River Valley, and they used West African and Caribbean experience to grow indigo, sugar, and rice, cash crops, in their new territories. The French used West Africans because they were skilled workers and had experience growing rice. The English also would use West Africans because of their experience growing rice in the Carolinas. Chapter 3, Section 3 Review. Please pause your video and answer these 3 review questions about Section 3. Chapter 3, Section 4. Developments in Spanish colonies north of Mexico. Spain would establish small, permanent colonies from Texas to the coast of California as their colonies north of Mexico. The Pueblo Revolt, New Mexico in 1680. In 1680, Pope led the Pueblo people of the Southwest in a revolt against the Spanish because the Spanish had taken away the Pueblo people's traditional way of life and religion. The governor, Antonio de Autermin, retreated to Mexico. It took the Spanish 12 years to regain control of New Mexico. In 1698, the Spanish began offering the compromise of allowing the Pueblo people to practice not only their native religion, but also the Catholic religion. Spain's response to France and England, San Antonio and the missions of California. Spain was threatened by the advances and claims that both France and England had made in North America. Spain built San Antonio in present-day Texas in response to the French settlement at New Orleans. Spain built the missions in California in response to Sir Francis Drake's voyage up the coast of California for England, and in response to Russia's holdings in the Pacific Northwest and Northern California. Please pause your video and answer these 2 review questions from Chapter 3, Section 4.